This is Financially Fit Radio with Cory Sickles from Safe Harbor Retirement Group. When a part of your financial strategy is out of tune, your long-term goals, your retirement savings, and your legacy can all suffer. With many years of experience in the financial industry, Cory provides his clients and prospects with the information they need regarding Social Security, retirement income planning, wealth management, and much more. Listen in as we address your financial concerns and provide helpful solutions to put you on the path to achieving your retirement goals. And now, here is Financially Fit Radio with Cory Sickles.
Welcome back to another episode of Financially Fit Radio. I'm Cory Sickles with Safe Harbor Retirement Group and Wealth Advisors. If you'd like any information about what we discussed today, feel free to give us a call at 614-760-0670, or you can always visit us online at safeharboroh.com. And while you're on our website, feel free to check out that radio page. You can listen to previous episodes, as well as you can also subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, or Spotify. Also, feel free to check out today's show on our YouTube channel. Just type in Safe Harbor Retirement Group and subscribe. You can also then be updated when we put out our short videos, which are just small financial topics that's really there to help to educate you on different types of financial topics. You know, our job here at Safe Harbor is try to work with you to make sure you have the best retirement that you can. So just give us a call again at 614-760-0670 to set up a complimentary no financial obligation meeting with us. Today, we're going to talk about something that can actually be kind of tough. And that is how can you actually talk to your parents about their estate planning? So before we dive into that, let me introduce to you my co-host this week and every week, and that's Tony Shore. Tony, how are you today?
Oh, I'm doing good. I'm doing great, Cory. In fact, I had a great couple of weeks. I had a couple of days off spent with family, so that's always good. And just enjoying things. I don't know, a lot of our listeners might not know this. We typically record the show on Mondays. And last night was a Buffalo Bills game. Did you happen to see that?
I did see that.
The Snow Bowl? That
Yes.
was hilarious with the players sliding around. And
Yep, it was.
Yeah.
We had a little bit of snow, I guess, the week before with Pittsburgh and Cleveland.
Yeah.
But nothing like the snow they actually had there in Buffalo.
Did you see? I wonder if our listeners watch that. Any of you out there? Whenever the Bills would score a touchdown, and there were many, they were lighting it up. But the stands would throw snow way up in the air and throw snowballs because there was so much snow in the seats.
Sure.
Every time they'd score, the whole stadium would erupt with snow, like fireworks except snow. I love that. I just love those winter games in Buffalo. And now they're building a new stadium next to it, but I think it's going to be a dome, which is somewhat disappointing. So,
I mean, it's definitely a home field advantage for them. San Francisco didn't want any part of it.
No, they were slipping, sliding, dropping the ball. I mean, really sure-handed people, guys who had never fumbled the ball, or did you see their line? They showed a few plays. Their line tried to move, and they all just slipped down where they were. Nobody touched them. They were just on the ground. So, that's tough. Those are tough conditions to play in, but fun to watch for us and fun for the team that's used to it. I mean, it looks like the Bills had been practicing in snow-covered fields or something. They look like they were at home there. So,
you got to have that mentality. It's kind of like Green Bay too, right?
Yes.
You got to have that mentality when it gets cold out.
Yep.
They love it. It's a big home field advantage to them, and
that's
the
fans seem to enjoy it too. You'd think they'd be miserable, but they were really into it. So
everyone was probably inside all weekend anyway. For the holidays.
It's true. It's been. I'll tell you what. In Minnesota, I've been up in Minnesota with family, and wow, has it been cold, Cory? Yeah. Over Thanksgiving, the feels like temperature was on Friday morning was -2. That was the
Yeah.
feels like temperature, and it was 11 degrees. So I didn't want any part of outside this weekend, but it's fun to spend it inside with family. We played some games. Now, this topic, how to talk to your parents about estate planning. I know you don't have to talk to your dad. He knows quite a bit, I would assume, about estate planning, correct?
I would hope so, right?
Gary?
I would hope so, since he
Yeah.
does what I do.
Yeah, he does what you do, and it's all in the family there. But for my parents, they knew nothing, and I've taken what I've learned from you on the show and others, and just had to help them out because they were not set up and didn't understand what needed to be done.
Yep. Yeah. And it's something that comes up with a lot of my, clients that I work with. Usually the discussion is, you know what, my parents left us. I had to deal with all this stuff. I had to deal with probate. They didn't have anything set up. And normally when I have clients come in, they're going to say, I wanted to get all this stuff taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
So my kids don't experience what I had to go through.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And let's face it, a lot of times parents don't want their kids to know how much money they have, where is all the money. A lot of times they'll just say, hey, I got a will in place and we're all set and good, right?
Right.
And what a lot of people don't really understand is just because you have a will doesn't mean things aren't going to go through probate. Now,
Right.
you can set things up the correct way, Tony, in order to have a will and make sure you avoid probate. But there's just so many times that I hear that quite a bit. Oh, I got a will, we're all good. Then I ask a couple other questions, and necessarily, they're not good. And obviously, the first thing that you have to do is you got to pick the right time to really have this discussion with your parents. And the holidays probably are not it, right?
Right.
There's a lot of family
Yeah.
gatherings around Thanksgiving, around Christmas.
Mhm.
Tensions are kind of high anyway. I mean, let's face it.
People are stressed about traveling, about what time everybody's
Yes.
getting there, or preparing food, or who brought what, who's gonna keep so and so happy, what are we gonna do with the dog? There's
I
so
mean,
many things.
yeah. I mean, and it might not always be the case. You got to go, your in-laws are coming in town, staying with you. It's just a stressful period of time. So
Yeah.
holidays probably are not the best time to be able to do this. Now, it might be a quick discussion with them, say, hey, I want to get together with you, first quarter or something like that. But you want to pick a time that's going to be not stressful.
Right.
You definitely don't want to, you want to make it more private too.
Yeah.
Right. And it might be something where it's not just you, but it might be you and your siblings. They're going to have this discussion with your parents about it.
Yeah.
So, but the main thing is, again, is to pick a time when everyone can be relaxed and, again, not stressed. And the holidays is not the time to do that.
No, it is not. That's a great point. People are stressed around the holidays, and that's why there are issues when it comes to family. That's why you want to try to avoid politics and religion and estate planning.
Yeah.
Just the word in-laws stresses me out, Cory.
Yeah. And I think the way the conversation really needs to start, Tony, is, they need to understand that, hey, you love them, but we just need to be able to, we want to be able to discuss some things about your overall estate. And really the way to really approach this, I think one of the biggest things you need to be able to do is say, hey, we just want to make sure that everything's in order to avoid probate. But more importantly, you have everything set up to go to the people you want it to go to.
Yeah.
Right. And it might not be me. Right. Or maybe it's a small percentage. Maybe they want to give it to their grandkids or whatever else. But the main thing is you want to make sure it's going to go the right way to the people they want to in the most tax efficient way.
Yeah,
And
that's the bottom line. Yeah, tax efficiency, you have to figure that out, and that's where you come in, right?
Yeah. It's exactly right. It could be tax efficient. But here's the big part of it. I know you experienced this. We've talked about it on previous shows, right? But by having this discussion, to make sure they go the way they want it to be able to go to, you're going to eliminate family disputes because everyone is on the same page going forward on how your wishes are going to be met.
Yeah, I mean, how many times have we seen that happen in with clients where they don't communicate ahead of time, and I've seen it with my family, and then even the tightest knit families, it can cause rifts that last forever. One of my dad's brothers isn't speaking to the rest of the family because of the whole thing.
It
My
happens.
dad and his brother, who were close, or at least somewhat close, and it was a tight-knit family. It created a rift when my grandfather died because my grandfather, like you mentioned at the beginning of the show, is one of those people. He did not want to discuss money with anyone, right?
Right.
Any of his family. So when he did make the one person the executor of his will, he didn't work with a good financial attorney. He worked with somebody who really didn't know what they were doing, and he appointed the youngest son, and there was no other communication with the other siblings. And this, when it was all said and done, there were a lot of surprises. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think obviously if you have the discussion, hopefully you're going to eliminate the surprises. But here's the other part: if you don't have everything in order, you don't know you don't know if something's going to happen to you tomorrow, where you can't even have the option to make the decisions.
Right.
Right? I mean, you could have a stroke, you could have a car wreck. There's all kinds of things that can actually happen.
Sure.
Where all of a
Good
sudden,
point.
all of a sudden, mentally you're not there, and now you can no longer make those decisions. And which means a lot of it's going to go through probate, maybe not to go the way that you actually wanted it to go. So, the best time to be able to do all this stuff is now because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah. You don't. No one knows, and the day or time, and so get it in place now, and that's the key, right? Especially, I mean, once you have kids, that's when you got to start taking this seriously. You don't wait until you're 70.
Right. And, obviously you want to try to be positive when you're talking to your parents, Tony, about
Oh yeah,
these type of things as well. But really I mean, when you really think about it, when you start having these discussions, the first thing the parents are going to think about is, well, you think I'm dying.
that's
Right?
what makes it tough to broach this
Right.
conversation with
But
your
but you
parents.
can, hopefully they're healthy and you say, "Hey, I know you're healthy. We just want to make sure everything's in order for the way that you want it to go. Because we do love you and we want to make sure that's going to go the way that you do want it to go." I
Yeah,
mean, but when you start having those discussions, and there's going to be some siblings don't even want to discuss this too, because now they're actually thinking that their parents are going to pass away.
yeah. Nobody likes
Um,
to think about this
right.
topic, right?
No, but you just need to be, you need to be able to, be gentle about it. Don't be aggressive when you start talking to your parents about it because it's an uncomfortable situation. They might not want you to know exactly what they have, and necessarily they don't have to. If you decide and sit down with them and maybe you do a little bit of research to make sure that you understand that you understand the difference between a will and a trust and the benefits to them, not to you, but to them. I think that's the most important part is they need to be able to understand what the importance of having all this in place is for them. And it's really, again, back to make sure it's going the most efficient way. And more importantly, the way that they want their assets to be, distributed.
Yeah, and do it while they're say, we need to talk about this while you're healthy to make sure your true wishes get
Right.
carried out because later in life, so many people now suffer from Alzheimer's or dementia. We lose cognitive abilities, and that's what I see with my parents. I'm learning is, hey, some of this stuff we should have done a lot sooner. And you'd rather not have regrets. Get it done now, and you won't have any of those regrets.
Yeah, and the other part to think about is when you're actually having those discussions, um, you should have your stuff in order as well.
Yeah.
Because you can sit there and tell your parents, say, "Hey, we just went through this. We got everything set up. We have that to go to. We have everything to go the way we want it to be able to go. Because we're not guaranteed here tomorrow. And we just want to
Right.
make sure that you have everything set up as well.
Sure.
And if you need to provide them some type of assistance, like, hey, you want me to research some attorneys with you, set up the meetings. I don't have to be in the meetings, but you just want to make sure that they're going through the process to make sure that it is set up. Because, um, and obviously, bring an example up if their parents had to experience a nightmare, or maybe one of their friends had a nightmare because their parents didn't have everything set up the correct way as well.
Right.
So try to use some type of examples, and hopefully you're going to be able to sit there and say, "This is what we did." It's because then the parents go, "Oh, well, you're 30 years younger than me. You have all your stuff in order, and I don't."
Yeah, that's helpful. That's a great point. That's a really good strategy. Plus, you should have your stuff in order anyway.
That's
So
exactly right.
it's a win-win then.
Yeah, and again, they might need assistance to find a financial advisor, depending on where they are, or find an estate planning attorney, or maybe even
Mhm.
a CPA. So you might have to sit down, depending on where they are. There, you might have to sit down and show them that as well.
Yeah. I mean, if you're in the same region or it works out, it might be beneficial to work with the same estate planner. And I know families who really benefit from having the same financial professional help them with all this. And because it needs to be part of your overall financial picture, your retirement picture, it plays into that. So I know you have a lot of your clients, their families, their parents, them, their kids, they'll all work with you. So it's a one place and you know what's going on and can help them should something happen. I think that's really, really important.
That's exactly right, Tony. But yeah, and there's some other things that you want to be able to do as well, too, right? Um, Once you start having the discussions, kind of see where it's kind of going, and then there might be some follow up that need to be done, and that might be from you or even from your parents, right? But I think they need to understand that, again, that you're just following up with them. You're not on their butt about all this type of stuff, but you just want to make sure that, hey, these are the action items that you said you were going to do. You said you're going to meet with an attorney by April. Did you meet with an attorney in April? Did you get everything signed and all that type of stuff as well? So I think it's something that you need to be able to understand, as you kind of work with them, to make sure that everyone's kind of being held accountable. But again, you want to be nice about it more than anything else, just to make sure that they are following through. And you might have to be doing some things with them as well, right? So I think that's very important as well.
Yeah, you want to be respectful. You want to be patient with them. You're going to have to be if they're anything like my parents.
Yes.
Yeah, we all know patience with family is important, right?
It is. It's very
Yeah,
important,
yeah,
and it's something that everyone does need to understand.
yeah.
Um, Yet, some of the other things that you need to be able to do, I think it's very important too, is it's not just you. You need to make sure that you do have your siblings involved. If you have siblings, everyone needs to be on the same page. You want them to have the discussions. You don't want them to feel left out, just like we discussed earlier. If you're one having the discussions and all of a sudden something happens and now they're in the dark about actually what took place, you know, and I see so many times where, people have so many issues, Tony, with being left in the dark. They don't know exactly what's happening. And a lot of times it's not an easy process to go through probate, and not only probate, even if someone's has everything in order, it's just not like tomorrow you get your money, right? There's a process that you have to go through. And I think a lot of siblings don't understand the process of what a trustee or an executor goes through, and how long that can actually take for them as well.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. And that's true. You want to make sure that you choose the right executor for your will. And I just want to reiterate when my grandfather passed, it's great to pick one person that you trust as the executor. He had 4 children. But I think you still need to communicate with all 4 children what's
Yep,
going on a regular basis and while you're still alive and sit everybody down together.
that's exactly right. That's exactly right. So, I think, as we kind of discussed, today's show, Here's the most important part. Um, again, you want to make sure that you set up a time to meet with your parents and not do this over the holidays.
Yep.
You want to get your siblings involved, and you want to make sure they completely understand that, hey, you're doing this out of love, and you're making sure that they're gonna, this is gonna. We want everything to go the way that you want it to go, and whether it's going to kids or grandchildren or charities or however you want to be.
I don't know what happened there. I lost you.
Yeah, Tony. So it's so important that you're just being able to sit down with your parents, sit down with your siblings, and just to make sure everyone's on the same page, so they know what's going to happen if something does happen, right? Um, Siblings hate the unknown. Actually, anyone who's going to be able to have that, and believe me, you might have. Here's the one thing I do see a lot. Every once in a while, you do have it where one sibling's going to be really kind of disinherited from all that as well. Maybe they don't talk to them. Maybe they've done something, or maybe they've taken too much money, throughout their lifetime, or whatever that is. But again, I think they should know that up front more than anything else. And the other part that I kind of see about all this as well is there's so many times too, Tony, where one sibling kind of takes advantage of a situation, has parents change wills or estates, and they get all the money rather than their siblings as well. Maybe they're the one. Maybe they're the caretakers taking care of them, or whatever that is as well. But that's pretty tough situation to go through. A lot of parents don't like that to happen.
It's really hard.
That's why at some point in time, you just need to make sure you have, again, everything in order, and hopefully, the trustees are going to do the right thing for you during your moments of need.
Yeah, I think that's hugely important, and it has to be ongoing, right? You need to, once you have them get something in place, there are life changes. You probably need to check in on this once in a while, right? Like follow-ups.
Yeah, I mean, follow-ups are so important, as you kind of go through this process. When you sit there and you really think about it, when a client comes in and we start going through the estate planning process with an attorney, the first meeting you have to kind of lay everything out. The second meeting, you might sign all the documents, which might be 2 or 3 weeks later. And then if you do a trust, it might take a couple weeks to get everything in order. So, you might be looking at 4 to 6 weeks to get everything in order the way you need to make sure that everything is going to be set up the way it should be set up to avoid probate, to make sure everything goes the right way. If you're trying to do asset protections and things like that, it might take a little bit longer. But but here's the way I always look. I always tell clients this: get it in writing once. You can always go back and change it, right? Because things do change. People do pass away, or something like that. But let's just get it down now, the way you want it to go.
Yeah.
And then 6 months or a year from now, you can go back and change it.
Good point.
So take care of it today. Don't procrastinate. Get the thing done. Have the conversation with your parents, because it's a big unknown, especially, if your parents are unhealthy and maybe they might have to go to a nursing home and things like that. You're probably going to be the one. Someone within the family is going to have to be the one that's going to have to pay the bills and take care of them. So you need to make sure that you have a lot of this stuff ironed up, but just do it, in a, I don't want to say professional, but a caring way.
Yeah. Well, and that's huge, Corey. That's a great point. And and you need to figure out what they've already done. I mean, my parents' situation was they had some powers of attorney and a will in place, but they had done it so early and hadn't done anything with it. And my mom said, "Oh, that's in a file." And when they started having health problems, I said, "Hey, we should look at that. You should probably update or redo
Correct.
this." And so I had the new attorney look at it, and they didn't have a trust. They just had a will, and it really wasn't appropriate because it was from when I was a kid, right? I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
it was
Sure.
it wasn't anything current. So it really needed updating, and that's another good point you bring up. Don't assume they don't have something already, and you need to make sure that it's taken care of, that it's an updated will, and that everybody knows it's being updated, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something to ask them. I hear it a lot of the time. Well, last time I did my will was, 30 years ago. Well, I think things might have changed over the last 30 years.
Yeah.
You might have another kid or two by that time. So,
Yeah.
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 So, yeah, take care of it. Have that conversation. Don't do it over the holidays, even though you're all together. Pick out another time to be able to do it when it's a lot less stressful.
Yeah.
You'll make your parents happy. You'll be happy. And again, this is what all this is about, is being able to sleep a little bit better at night, knowing that you have everything done that needs to be done in case something doesn't happen. Or
Right.
something does happen.
Yeah. And I think another important part of this before we go, Corey, and I want to reiterate this, and this is true. This needs to be a part of your overall retirement plan and financial plan, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, when we sit down and talk financial, we got to talk estate planning. We got to
Yeah.
set beneficiaries up. We got to do all that type of stuff, and that's really part of your financial plan.
Yeah. I think it's so important, Corey. And, we've gone over a lot. You need to be prepared to answer questions, involve all family members, and I like the points you've made. Be respectful of your parents' wishes. And I like the point. My favorite part of it is get your stuff in order, and then you can say, "Hey, we did this.
Right.
You guys really need to make sure that you have these I's dotted and T's crossed." So before we go today, how can our listeners get a hold of you? I know you have estate planning attorneys you work with alongside to help your clients, and you can help get people started on this planning path. How can our listeners get a hold of you with questions?
Yeah, for our listeners out there, just give us a call at 614-760-0670, or you can always visit us online at safeharboroh.com. Again, we're here to help and guide you to make sure not only do you not run out of money in retirement, but we also want to make sure everything goes the way that you want it to go, which is you need to have an estate plan. Again,
Sure.
all of our meetings are complimentary. There's no financial obligation, so schedule a complimentary meeting with us.
All right. Sounds good, Corey. And listeners, that does it for today's episode of Financially Fit Radio with our host, Cory Sickles. Thank you for listening to Financially Fit Radio. Don't pay too much for taxes or retire without a sound income plan. For more information, contact Cory Sickles at Safe Harbor Retirement Group. Call 614-760-0670 or visit their website at financiallyfitoh.com.
All matters discussed during the show are for informational purposes only. Each individual situation may vary, and the opinions expressed here may not apply to everyone. Materials presented are believed to be from reliable sources, and no representations can be made as to its accuracy. All ideas and information should be discussed in detail with one of our qualified representatives prior to implementation. We are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration, the Federal Medicare Program, or any other government agency. Calling this number will direct you to a licensed sales agent.